Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4. This is the final week of our poetry unit, and I'm super excited because we're talking about the project that we're going to do to cap off our poetry unit. We'll do this with each of our following units as well: fiction, uh, plays, and novel. So they're all going to be different, but they're all going to be kind of a culminating project for the final week of the unit. So this week for the poetry project, your task is to create a poetry installation. So a poetry installation is a project where a poem is in a poem or poems. You're going to focus on one poem, but you'll see in the examples when people do this, they often have more than one poem in an installation, but we're going to just focus on one poem, is incorporated in some way in a place where people can encounter it and see it and appreciate it. So let me show you a few examples. I think this will make more sense to you. So one of the big projects, and I've given you these links on Brightspace so you can check them out more at your leisure. But just to give you a quick overview, Poetry in Motion is one where poems are incorporated into the subway. Some in New York City, sometimes they're tiled in the walls, they're in different ways, they're incorporated. And so you can see, if you click on these little tiles, it'll give you examples of those. There's also a project called The Language of Conservation, Poetry in the Zoos. And this little slideshow at the beginning here is a really great way to see how poems might be incorporated. So in this one, you see it's on, I can't entirely tell what this is. Maybe it's kind of a bench or like a plank you could walk on. This is a really cool one. Look at this, how it's kind of etched in glass. So you're looking through the glass and you're reading the poem, but you're also seeing the environment. This one is actually written on the side of the building. This one is being painted on like kind of the curb on the edge of a pathway. And this is on the back of like a bench. This is in a building sort of above a balcony, right? So you can see it there. And this is inside of a library at the museum, and you can see how it's etched on the walls, or sort of I guess it's the base of the second floor there. And this is an actual rock, right? That's somewhere along the path. So that gives you some ideas. And one more I wanted to show you. This is actually an interactive map of Iowa City. It's called the Lit Walk, and it's got all kinds. It's really cool. You literally, I've been there, and you walk around and you're like, oh, here's a poem, here's a quote, here's right. And it's kind of a cool way to interact with the poetry. And so if you click on my computer's being slow, but if you click on this, one of the sites, it will open up and you can open up a full page and it tells you what it says and you can see the picture. So this is Ray Young Bear, and it's from his uh from a book of his poems, The Invisible Musician Poems. It said, it is true then, I am a lonely human being. So imagine you're walking along in Iowa City and you see this. This is actually a metal plate that's actually embedded in the sidewalk. So you can look at those as you, for ideas, okay, of how it might be incorporated. So your task is you're going to choose one of the poems that we read in weeks 2 or 3. So you had 8 poems in each week. So there's 16 total for you to choose from. It does have to be one of those poems. I want you to pick one that we've looked at. It does not have to be one that you wrote about. If you wrote about it before, great. If you didn't, that's fine. You just have an idea for how to use that poem. Any of those 16 poems that you are assigned to read are fair game. And so your job is to create a poetry installation for that poem, and you're going to describe where it is, what it's doing there, why it makes sense to have it there, how it's going to be incorporated, etc. So for this week, for Thursday, first I want just a post in this discussion board of your initial idea. So what's the title of the poem and the specific place you're going to have it installed. So I don't just want a park, like I want something specific as Pepin Park in Havre, Montana. Okay, it needs to be somewhere where people can encounter it, not your house or your grandmother's basement. So somewhere people could actually see it. And All I want is the poem, specifically where it's going to be, and really briefly how you think it would be installed. So I gave the example here of if you were going to install it at a specific drive-in movie theater, maybe you imagine it, oh, there's a whole blank side of a concession stand and it would go here and that would look really great, right? So you're going to think about just really briefly, like one paragraph explaining that so I can give you some feedback on your idea. And then by the end of the day on Sunday, you're going to write a paper, short paper, explaining your idea. So 2 pages, double spaced, which is about 500 words, explaining your poetry installation. How does your idea fit with the message of the poem? So in other words, why this poem in this place? How's it going to get people interested in this, in poetry and reading it and kind of be surprised or delighted, right, in seeing this? You can use I in this paper. You do not have to include a visual, but if you would like to include like a little drawing or photo or something like that, you can. It's not required, okay, but you can. What I am asking you to have is on the works cited page. On the 3rd page will be works cited at the top, and then I want one entry. You do not have to make an entry for the poem since I gave them to you and they're on our Brightspace page. I don't expect you to cite that, but I want you to cite the place. So you need to find some place online that mentions this place, maybe has a picture of this place. It could be a city website that talks about the parks. It could be a Facebook page of a business, right? A YouTube video that shows the place, anything that helps to document like what actual place you're picking. And I gave you a link. Sorry, I have to make this link active. Maybe it is, but it's just not lighting up. I'll make sure it's active. So I gave you a link to show you how to cite an online source, because I'm assuming this is going to be an online source of some kind, website or social media post about this place. So advice for this project, the most important thing I think is to pick a poem that really interests you, because then you'll be happier and excited about writing this project. So some poem you want to share with others from our 16 poems you're picking from, and remembering that the goal is to get people interested in poetry. How will this pull people in? Really think about the location that you would put this poem in and how it would fit in there well. Think about specifically, and when you look at more closely at the examples that I showed you earlier, you're going to think about how it's going to fit in this physical place or what physical objects it might be on, like bleachers on a stadium, fence posts, right? Where is it going to be? How's it actually going to be depicted? And the key thing here is it has to be realistic. So for example, I'm not going to say that I will project it in fireworks, right, above a park, because we can't read something in fireworks. And even if you could, it would only be once, right? You can only do it, you wouldn't be able to do that continuously. So you want something that is realistic and that people could encounter more than once. Think about how you could use color, font, illustrations, etc., to illuminate the poem's words, images, ideas, metaphors, right? So you're taking a close look at the poem and thinking about how can you represent that poem right in that place. In your paper, you're going to be partly close reading the poem. You need to be quoting some of the phrases from the poem, like the images, the figurative language, and then talking about why it makes sense to have it in this place and why it makes sense to physically represent it the way that you've chosen to physically represent it in this place. I'm having you do the discussion board first so that I can give you some feedback and answer any questions that you might have. And then the second thing in this week's unit is just the Dropbox for your paper. So this is your 2-page paper with the one works cited entry at the end for the place, and it's going to be uploaded in this Dropbox. So that is the poetry installation project. I hope you get excited about it too. I really look forward to seeing your ideas. I've been very much enjoying your personal connections that you're making with the poems. It's been really awesome to see that. We have some great people who fish in here who've related to that, people who have spent time in nature, people spent time in the hardware store. So a lot of great connections, right, that you've made. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to stop there and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.